Climate change can be a natural process where temperature, rainfall, wind, and other elements vary over decades or more. In millions of years, our world has been warmer and colder than it is now. But today we are experiencing unprecedented rapid warming from human activities, primarily due to burning fossil fuels that generate greenhouse gas emissions. Climate change can be a natural process where temperature, rainfall, wind, and other elements vary over decades or more. In millions of years, our world has been warmer and colder than it is now. But today we are experiencing unprecedented rapid warming from human activities, primarily due to burning fossil fuels that generate greenhouse gas emissions. Increasing greenhouse gas emissions from human activity act like a blanket wrapped around the Earth, trapping the sun's heat and raising temperatures. Examples of greenhouse gas emissions that are causing climate change include carbon dioxide and methane. These come from burning fossil fuels such as gasoline for driving a car or coal for heating a building. Clearing land and forests can also release carbon dioxide. Landfills for garbage are another source. Energy, industry, agriculture, and waste disposal are among the major emitters. Greenhouse gas concentrations are at their highest levels in 2 million years and continue to rise. As a result, the Earth is about 1.1 degrees Celsius warmer than it was in the 1800s. The last decade was the warmest on record. Many people think climate change mainly means warmer temperatures. But temperature rise is only the beginning of the story. Because the Earth is a system, where everything is connected, changes in one area can influence changes in all others. The consequences of climate change now include, among others, intense droughts, water scarcity, severe fires, rising sea levels, flooding, melting polar ice, catastrophic storms and declining biodiversity. People are experiencing climate change in diverse ways. It affects our health, ability to grow food, housing, safety, and work. Some of us are already more vulnerable to climate impacts, such as people living in small island developing states. Conditions like sea level rise and saltwater intrusion have advanced to the point where whole communities have had to relocate. In the future, the number of climate refugees is expected to rise. Every increase in global warming matters. In a 2018 report, thousands of scientists and government reviewers agreed that limiting global temperature rise to no more than 1.5 degrees Celsius would help us avoid the worst climate impacts and maintain a livable climate. Yet the current path of carbon dioxide emissions could increase global temperature by as much as 4.4 degrees Celsius by the end of the century. The emissions that cause climate change come from every part of the world and affect everyone, but some countries produce much more than others. The 100 least emitting countries generate 3% of total emissions. The 10 largest emitters contribute 68%. Everyone must take climate action, but people and countries creating more of the problem have a greater responsibility to act first. Climate change is a huge challenge, but we already know many solutions. These can deliver economic benefits while improving our lives and protecting the environment. We also have global agreements to guide progress, such as the UN Framework Convention on Climate Change and the Paris Agreement. 3 broad categories of action are: cut emissions, adapt to climate impacts and finance required adjustments. Switching energy systems from fossil fuels to renewables like solar will reduce the emissions driving climate change. But we have to start right now. While a growing coalition of countries is committing to net zero emissions by 2050, about half of emissions cuts must be in place by 2030 to keep warming below 1.5 degrees Celsius. Fossil fuel production must decline by roughly 6% per year between 2020 and 2030. Adapting to climate consequences protects people, homes, businesses, livelihoods, infrastructure, and natural ecosystems. It covers current impacts and those likely in the future. Adaptation will be required everywhere, but must be prioritized now for the most vulnerable people with the fewest resources to cope with climate hazards. The rate of return can be high. Early warning systems for disasters, for instance, save lives and property, and can deliver benefits up to 10 times the initial cost. We can pay the bill now, or pay dearly in the future. Climate action requires significant financial investments by governments and businesses. But climate inaction is vastly more expensive. One critical step is for industrialized countries to fulfill their commitment to provide $100 billion a year to developing countries so they can adapt and move towards greener economies. What is climate change? Climate change is the long-term shift in global and local weather patterns primarily caused by carbon emissions and the greenhouse effect. It encompasses more than just the rise in Earth's surface temperatures known as global warming. Together with global warming, climate change also includes, for example, alterations in precipitation, cloud patterns, and sea levels. While there are natural causes of climate change, the majority of climate change since the 19th century has been driven by humans. Despite this, climate misinformation persists, with some climate skeptics attributing most, if not all, climate alterations to natural phenomena. To get a better understanding of what's really behind climate change, let's examine three of its primary causes and effects. What are the causes of climate change? Here are three large contributors to climate change, all of which are interlinked with the greenhouse effect. Food production and agriculture. The agricultural sector is one of the biggest overall emitters of carbon emissions and the largest emitter of methane, CH4. When emitted, carbon compounds such as methane trap heat in the atmosphere and are one of the biggest drivers of global warming, leading to countless subsequent issues. Fossil fuels, the process of creating electricity to power our homes, transport us around, and produce our goods relies heavily on burning fossil fuels. This process is the biggest emitter of carbon dioxide, CO2, emissions worldwide, and energy continues to be one of the key challenges in fighting climate change. Forest degradation and deforestation. Forests regulate the climate by capturing and converting vast amounts of carbon compounds. By cutting down our forests, we are not only robbing our planet of its carbon sinks but also helping release previously stored carbon back into the atmosphere. Furthermore, the loss of forests destroys biodiversity, disrupts water cycles, and leads to soil erosion. What are the effects of climate change? Here are three profound effects of climate change. Destruction of natural habitats. Climate change significantly accelerates ecosystem collapse, the loss of biodiversity, and species extinction events through the destruction of habitats. The Arctic, for example, has been warming at 4 times the global average, leading to current reindeer numbers having and polar bears facing extinction by the turn of the century. More extreme weather events, extreme heat waves, storms, wildfires, floods, and droughts are a direct consequence of climate change. Summer 2023 was the hottest on record, and climate-related disasters are becoming a regular occurrence. And unless we fix the underlying causes, these problems are about to get a lot worse. Reduced health, food, and water security. Climate change leads to a whole host of food, health, and water-related repercussions for humans and animals alike. This includes reduced agricultural yields, less fresh water availability, and the spread of diseases like malaria. Between 2030 and 2050, these effects are expected to lead to an additional 250,000 deaths every single year. The scientific community has been investigating the causes of climate change for decades. After thousands of studies, it came to a consensus, where it is unequivocal that human influence has warmed the atmosphere, ocean, and land since pre-industrial times. This consensus is supported by around 200 scientific organizations worldwide. The dominant role in this climate change has been played by the direct emissions of carbon dioxide from the burning of fossil fuels. Indirect CO2 emissions from land use change, and the emissions of methane, nitrous oxide, and other greenhouse gases play major supporting roles. Effects of climate change are well documented and growing for Earth's natural environment and human societies. Changes to the climate system include an overall warming trend, changes to precipitation patterns, and more extreme weather. As the climate changes, it impacts the natural environment with effects such as more intense forest fires, thawing permafrost, and desertification. These changes impact ecosystems and societies, and can become irreversible once tipping points are crossed. Climate activists are engaged in a range of activities around the world that seek to ameliorate these issues or prevent them from happening. The effects of climate change vary in timing and location. Thank you for watching this video.